Hello, welcome to Traveller's Guide IELTS, and today we are looking at Reading Test 3 from the IELTS Academic Book 19. We're going to go through all of the questions, look at the answers, and explain why these are the right answers. Before you begin, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to Traveller's Guide IELTS for more videos like this one, and leave a comment at the end with the score that you got and if you have any queries. So just to remind you, the IELTS academic reading test consists of 3 reading passages, a total of 40 questions, and you have 1 hour to complete all 3 parts. And at the end you can then convert your number of correct answers into a band score. Right, let's get on then to reading section 1. So you should spend about 20 minutes on the first passage, which includes questions 1 to 13, and they're based on the passage with the title, Archaeologists Discover Evidence of Prehistoric Island Settlers. Now, there might be some words in there that you don't understand, but that's okay, we can do our best. So archaeologists, this is a kind of job that involves digging up things from history. Prehistoric means before history began, so very old. Okay, let's look at the questions. Now, you don't have time to read the whole thing, but we start with questions 1 to 7, and these are true, false, not given options. So let's look at this then. If the statements that you're given agree with the information in the passage, you should write true. If it contradicts or disagrees with the information, write false, and if there's no information about it, choose not given. Make sure at this point that you do write true, false, not given, and not yes, no, not given, because sometimes those can get mixed up. Right, the first question. Archaeological research had taken place on the island of Obi before the arrival of Kerry Shipton and his colleagues. Well, if we then look for Obi and Kerry Shipton in the passage, this should be able to direct us to the right place. And here we can find them in this paragraph. Okay, so is the statement going to be true, false, or not given? Well, before, so archaeological research had taken place on the island before. Before is a key word. In the passage, it says that Dr. Kerry Shipton was the first archaeologist to explore it. Therefore, the answer must be false. If they were the first ones, then nothing could have happened before. Okay, on to question 2. At the Kello sites, the researchers found the first clamshell axes ever to be discovered in the region. So moving on a little bit in the passage, we then have some information about Kello, and we're looking for clamshells here. So we can find clamshells in the passage, we can find region as well, so we know we're in the right place. But then highlighted in blue, the first clamshells also previously had been found elsewhere in this region. Okay, so that shows that these are not the first ones. The answer here is false. Some had already been found. Previously means before, so false is the answer for number 2. On to question 3. The size of Obi today is less than it was 18,000 years ago. Now for this one, I'm going to look at the phrase 18,000 years. Numbers are usually quite easy to find in the passage when you're skimming through, so I can find 18,000 years in this section. Now, we need the size, and it needs to be less than. So this phrase highlighted in green from the passage, Obi was a much larger island. Okay, so if it was much larger, then that means its size was less than it was before. So the answer for number 3, true. Number 4. A change in the climate around 11,700 years ago had a greater impact on Obi than on the surrounding islands. Again, that number is what I'm going to use to find the right part of the passage. And there we have it. It starts roughly 11,700 years ago. But a change in the climate. Right, we've got the climate became warmer and wetter. That's describing a change in the climate. Then it no doubt made the jungle in Obi much thicker. So the climate did have an impact on Obi, but was it a greater impact than the surrounding islands? No mention of that. So we know that it affected that island. Did it affect the other islands? And more or less, we don't know. We have to go with not given for this answer. Not given is a tricky one because we're looking for something that's not there. So if you can't find an answer, don't spend too long looking. If you're not sure, go with not given. Number 5. The researchers believe there is a connection between warmer weather, wetter weather, and a change in the material used to make axes. So warmer and wetter we can find in that same passage that we've just looked at. Okay. So material used in yellow, we've got stone rather than seashells. And make in green, we've got crafted from. Okay. So we need to find the connection part though in orange. We've got no coincidence. We've got in response to and increasingly dense rainforest. All of these things point to the answer being true. There is a connection between the weather and the materials used. And this is why. On to number 6. Shipton's team were surprised to find evidence of the Obi Islanders' hunting practices. Here we go. It's in this section here. Hunting practices, there we've got hunted, and practices is a way of doing something or a method. So they used axes to clear patches of forest. So that's what they're using axes for. That's not really like a method of hunting though. Surprised here is the key though. Let's look at this. Is there anything about surprised? Not given. Okay, now a not given question is often about people's opinions or reactions to something that's not going to be mentioned in the passage. So we have to go with not given for that one. Were they surprised? Maybe. We don't know. Moving on to number 7. It is thought that the Kello shelters were occupied continuously until about 1,000 years ago. Again, 1,000 years, let's find that in the passage, and here it is in this paragraph. So, occupied continuously. This says that there is no evidence for use after this time, until about 1,000 years ago. So, that is the opposite there. So we need to go with false on this one. Occupied continuously means that someone was living there the whole time. But the passage says there was no evidence for use. That means they can't find anything that shows that these caves were used until that time, or the shelters, sorry, were used. So that's a contradiction, false. The next part, questions 8 to 13, we need to choose one word only from the passage, and we need to fill in the notes about archaeological findings on Obi. Now, Obi is mentioned throughout the passage, so it's we might need to use other methods to find the right part. But this part, one word only, this is key. Number 8, excavations of rock shelters inside what? Near the village of Kello revealed something. So let's deal with this one and look at this. Excavations. Okay. Near the village of Kello, we've got that from just inland from the village of Kello. Okay. Just inland means towards the centre of the island, but nearby. And excavation, where we have the same word. Rock shelters, same word. And inside is containing. So, what is the missing word that we need here? It's this one, caves. Excavations of rock shelters inside caves near the village of Kello. Okay. And then on to number 9, we've got axes made out of what? Dating from around 11,700 years ago. We've already seen this number, so we should be able to find the right part quite easily. But axes made out of. Instead of made out of, we've got crafted from, and then it says crafted from stone rather than seashells. So the answer that we need is stone. Made out of stone, crafted from stone. Number 10, something of an animal. Evidence of what ancient islanders ate. Okay, now back to this part that we've seen before. The animal is a Rothschild's cuscus, which is a possum-like creature. Okay. But what have they found of it? It's the bones that they've unearthed. The bones of an animal. On to number 11, we've got evidence of travel between islands. Obsidian's one thing, but the other one, something which resembled ones found on other islands. So we've used obsidian to find the right part. That's a kind of black gemstone. Found on other islands, we've got found on islands resembled similar to. So what have we got which is resembled ones found on other islands? It's beads, round pieces of stone or something that you might use to make jewellery. Okay, moving on to 12 and 13. So this part, OB Islanders, they may have switched from hunting to fishing. They had something as well as items made out of metal. Now we've got this items made out of phrase, and it says gold and silver. These are examples of metals. So we're in the right place here, and had marks matches up with owned. So what did they have as well as items? Pottery. Pottery, pots and vases, and plates, cups, that kind of thing, made from clay. And then number 13, probably took part in the production and sale of what? Well, production and sale of could be trade, and took part in, involved in. So what are they producing and selling? What are they trading? Spices. So the answer for number 13, spices. We're now on to reading passage 2. And again, 20 minutes on this. This is questions 14 to 26. And the title of the passage is The Global Importance of Wetlands. So we've got an environment article here. Wetlands are areas of land that are have a lot of water. Okay, and for these questions 14 to 17, there they are, we need to choose the right paragraph, A to H. So in passage 2, all of the paragraphs are lettered A to H. Let's look at the first one. Which paragraph contains reference to the need to ensure that inhabitants of wetland regions continue to benefit from them? So again, a lot of high-level vocabulary that could put you off as soon as you read this, but let's get down to the individual words. So inhabitants in yellow, that's people who live there, citizens, or from the passage we've found local people. And people, right. Then need to, in blue we've got there's a need to provide. We've also got it's essential, which is another way of saying needs. And then benefits from them, here are some examples, income, and also profit from them. So here we have a few different things pointing towards paragraph G as being the right answer for question 14. 15. The proportion of wetlands which have already been lost. So proportion, we're looking for an amount or a percentage, and here I've found half of. Already been lost, disappeared, and it says since 1990, which shows it's in the past, so that goes with the lost there, in the past. So the answer for this one is paragraph A. 16. Reference to the idea that people are beginning to appreciate the value of wetlands. Now here I can find in paragraph H, beginning to appreciate, awareness is growing, and value we have importance. Now just reading this question, I would expect to find this kind of thing at the end of the passage, and yep, there it is in paragraph H. So that's the answer for 16. Next, 17, and we're looking at for a mention of the cultural significance of wetlands. So in paragraph B, I have found religious, historical, and archaeological value. These are all things related to culture, and value is about the same as significance. So paragraph B is the correct answer for 17. Now for questions 18 to 22, still in section 2, we need to choose one word only from the passage for each answer. Again, just one word. If you're finding that you found 2 words, that cannot be correct. Also, it must be from the passage, so don't change the word or choose one that fits but isn't in the passage. Number 18. Peatlands which have been drained begin to release what instead of storing it? Now, I managed to guess this one before even reading the passage because I know what peatlands are important for, and draining them, taking the water out, can release this thing that they store. But let's go to paragraph D where it talks about peatlands. It says they're waterlogged. So when they're being drained, there we've got peatlands and drained. Release in orange is the same as emit, or they are emitters. Instead of stores, instead of storing it. So what are they releasing? What should they be storing? Looking at their carbon. They are carbon releasers after they've been drained. It could have been something like carbon dioxide, for example, but that would be 2 words, so let's just stick with carbon. On to 19. Once peatland areas have been cleared, something are more likely to occur. So what's going to happen once these areas have been cleared? Well, in paragraph D, we've found clearance of peatlands, which is the same as peatland areas have been cleared, and more likely to incur, increase the risk of. So the answer is going to be, I've underlined forest fires because that's what it's pointing us towards. But remember, we can only use one word. So while forest fires would make sense, we can only use one of these words, so we have to go with fires. It wouldn't make sense to only choose the word forest because that's an area of trees and that's not something that's a risk of, so we have to just go with fires. I think if you chose forest fires, that's unlucky because it's the right answer, but it's not following the rules of one word only. Number 20, clearing peatland forests to make way for oil palm plantations destroys the something of the local environment. Right, that is also going to be in paragraph D. And again, I managed to guess this one before reading it. So, oil palm plantations, there we have oil palm, and destroys being lost. So, what is being lost? It is the biodiversity of the local environment. Biodiversity means the range of different wild plants and animals and insects that live there. There we go. So that's being lost, being destroyed. 21. Water is drained out of peatlands through the something which are created by logging companies. So what are they using to drain the water? Well, over to paragraph E, because we've got logging companies here. And notice, also highlighted in blue, we have the word they. So this they refers to the logging companies. Okay. Water is drained from peatlands, so drain water out of peatlands. And again, there's a pronoun these. So what do these refer to? It is the ditches. So that is the missing word that we're looking for. Ditch is like a narrow channel cut into the land for water to drain out of, like a very small man-made river or a drain. So that's the answer there. This one, yeah, this is quite a difficult one. You need to focus on the pronouns to get you to the right answer. And 22, draining peatlands leads to what? A serious problem which can eventually result in coastal flooding and land loss. Okay, back to the same section, paragraph E. Flooding and land loss, we've got flooded, lose land mass, so we're in the right place. But what is the problem? It's a bit further back in the paragraph, and it is subsidence. Subsidence, where the land sort of disintegrates and things start to sink into it. Okay, so draining the peatlands would change the strength of the ground and it would start to subside. On to the next part, questions 23 to 26. You need to choose the correct expert, A, B, C, or D, who said what. And the names of those experts: Matthew McCartney, Peter van Eyck, Marcus Silvius, and Dave Tickner. Now, for these questions, it might be easier to do it the other way around and look for the person's name and see what they said. But let's look first at 23. Communities living in wetland regions must be included in discussions about the future of these areas. Okay, now this looks like something that we've seen before actually, when we had the bit about local people and the wetlands. So over in G, we've found communities living in wetland regions, local people, must be, it's essential, included, involved in, and then the discussions about the future, planning and decision making. So the answer to this is in paragraph G. However, this mentions both Silvius and McCartney. So who was it that said this part? That was McCartney. So the answer for 23 should be A. 24. Official policies towards wetlands vary from one nation to the next. Over in paragraph H, we can find different governments have different attitudes. So one nation to the next, nations are countries, different governments are in charge and they will make the official policies. And here it gives an example. Some countries place a high priority on restoring wetlands, while others still deny the issue. Now, again, we've got McCartney's name is right there, but actually a bit earlier in the paragraph, it is Silvius that says this bit, and there has Silvius and this little pronoun he, referring to him. So the answer for 24 is C, Marcel Silvius. 25. People cause harm to wetlands without having any intention to do so. Well, over in this bit in section F, I could find cause harm, so impacts and devastating. So a devastating impact is a way of causing harm, but without having any intention. So we've got a few different bits. So does not blame anyone for deliberate damage. Deliberate is the opposite of no intention. So that goes with that. Never met anyone who wanted to damage a wetland. Is also they didn't want to do it, they didn't intend to. Or it isn't something that people generally set out to do. All of these things showing intent. So who was it that said this? This is Tickner, Dr. Dave Tickner. So the answers to 25 should be D. And finally 26, initiatives to reverse environmental damage need not be complex. In paragraph C, we've got an example of an initiative, planting a few trees, and reverse substantially change need not be complex, as simple as. So who's talking about this? It is Peter van Eyck, and the answer is B for 26. And on to the final section, paragraph 3, passage 3, sorry. And the title of this one is the era of artificial speech translation upon us? And then it goes on to say, once the stuff of science fiction, technology that enables people to talk using different languages is now here. But how effective is it? This is a technology passage. Okay, so this is another popular topic for reading passages. Questions 27 to 30. We need to choose the correct letter A, B, C, or D. So we've got some multiple choice questions here. Number 27. What does the reader learn about the conversation in the first paragraph? So this is helpful. It tells us it's in the first paragraph. So let's get that here. Let's go through these one by one then to see what we've got. A suggests that they're communicating in different languages. However, this says that they're both speaking the same language as we are. And that is English, as it mentioned as well. So we can rule out option A. B, neither of them is familiar with their environment. So the environment is where they are in this case. So Professor Weibel is in a station in Japan, train station. So he's probably not familiar with that. But the writer is in his office. So that is a very familiar environment. So to say neither of them is familiar is not correct. B, that can go. Then on to C, the topic of the conversation is difficult for both speakers. It doesn't actually mention what they're talking about, so we can rule that one out because there's no information on that. However, aspects are challenging for both. So challenging is something that's difficult. The writer says, I'm struggling to follow him. That's one aspect that's challenging. And then Weibel would have been able to speak more comfortably in his native German. So it's challenging that he's having to speak in English. Therefore, yes, aspects of the conversation are challenging for both of the speakers. So the correct answer for 27 should be option D. 28. What assists the electronic translator during lectures at Karlsruhe's Institute of Technology? Well, we can find that in this part of the passage. Let's have a look then. So, assists, helps. We've got 3 examples of things that helps. Lecturers speak clearly. There's no background chatter. And they say much the same thing each year. Which one of these matches with one of the options? A is the repeated content of lectures, B, the students' reading skills, C, the languages used, or D, the lecturer's technical ability. Only one of those matches with one of the 3 things that help. And that should be say much the same thing each year, which matches with the repeated content of lectures. So A is the correct answer for 28. 29. Referring to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, what does the writer suggest? Okay, so we can find this paragraph, where the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is mentioned, a very famous and funny book. Now, I found this question quite difficult, actually, but I've ruled out A because we're saying it's undesirable at the time, but actually it's something that people dream of, and it doesn't say anything that people didn't want it. I've ruled out D because it says that some techniques are better than others. There's nothing comparing it to other things, so that's not there. However, the idea has been around for a long time, and it's something that people could dream of, that is now commonplace. So I would say that matches most with it's not a surprising development. So the correct answer is C, although I don't think that's very obvious. Moving on to question 30. What does the writer say about sharing earpieces? So in this part, we've got something about earpieces and sharing. So we're in the right place. The key phrases are: there's a barrier with sharing one of the earphones with a stranger, and that can't have been totally unexpected. Which statement does that match with? A, B, C, or D? Well, reluctance means you don't want to do something. That's the barrier to sharing. And understandable is the same as not totally unexpected. So B is the correct answer for question 30. The next section, 31 to 34, we need to choose the correct ending to the sentences, and it gives us 6 options to choose from. We won't need to choose all of them, but there they are. A, but there are concerns about this. B, as systems do not need to conform to standard practices. C, but they are far from perfect. D, despite the noise issues. E, because translation is immediate. And F, and have an awareness of good manners. 31. Speech translation methods are developing fast in Japan. So I found this section about Japan. Speech translation methods are developing fast. So same as developing fast or developing quickly, they have really taken off. Then the next bit goes, there is still a long way to go though. So what does that match up with in our options A to F? They are far from perfect. There's a long way to go means there's still a lot of work to do. They are not perfect. So C is the answer we're looking for question 31. Looking at 32, we've got TV interviews that use translation voiceover methods are successful. And here we can find this bit about TV. But we need to find something that matches up with simultaneous rather than in sections. So simultaneous means at the same time, not in sections or in chunks. So we need the translation to be immediate, simultaneous, immediate. So the answer to 32 is E. For 33, future translation systems should address people appropriately. Well, addressing people appropriately, we've got addressing people in the right way. Addressing people means to call them by their correct name or title. The next part, though, talks about cultural traditions, respect, being polite, etiquette, and cultural norms. So which end of sentence matches up with that? Good manners is similar to being polite and respecting people, etiquette. So F is the correct answer for 33. And 34, users may be able to maintain their local customs. Well, from the same section, maintain local customs, preserve local customs. But the next bit's also talking about cultural norms and habits, get on first name terms. Which one does that match up with? Well, cultural norms is another way of saying standard practices. So for this one, we need B. Again, that one's a bit tricky and not entirely obvious. Then on to the final part, questions 35 to 40. These are yes, no, not given questions. So there will be some statements. Do they agree with the writer's view? Write yes if it agrees, no if it disagrees or contradicts, and not given if we cannot know what the writer thinks. Again, for this one, do not write true or false. You must write yes or no. Be careful with the distinction. On to number 35. Language translation systems will be seen as very useful throughout the academic and professional worlds. Well, from this paragraph, it talks about professors who are academic and professionals. There we are. Will the system be seen as very useful? It says they will not outsource language awareness to software. So actually, that's suggesting no. It's not going to be seen as very useful. Perhaps they won't want to use it. So number 35, no. 36. The overall value of automated translation to family life is yet to be shown. Again, this is from the same paragraph. We notice we have family lives there, and the value, whether it will help, that's adding a value. But this part is yet to be shown, and that matches up with the phrase open to question. So we don't know for sure. Maybe yes, maybe no. So the answer is yes. The statement agrees with the article. Saying it's yet to be shown is saying it's open to question. 37. Automated translation could make life more difficult for immigrant families. Okay. Again, in the same paragraph, the second last paragraph, we're looking for immigrant families. These are generations after migration. So different generations within the same family. Migration, form of, immigration is a form of migration. So will it make life more difficult? In fact, it says that it could overcome language barriers. So it actually might make life easier. So the answer here is no. The statement is the opposite of what the writer believes. Again, don't write false. 38. Visual aspects of language translation are being considered by scientists. Okay, so we saw scientists in this paragraph, the final paragraph. There they are. And visual aspects. Visual means things you can see. For example, lip movements and something that describing how they look or what they look like. But actually, these two parts are not connected. So the scientists, are they considering these visual aspects? Not sure. So we have to go with not given on this one. It does mention visual aspects, it does mention scientists, but it doesn't connect the two in any way. 39. International scientists have found English easier to translate into other languages than Latin. Okay, so let's look back at this same paragraph. We saw the scientists, and we've got mentions of the languages English and Latin. But does it talk about them being easier to translate? There's not really a comparison there. So the answer for this one is not given. So they're using English. In the past, people used Latin, but it doesn't talk about what's easier to translate. Not given for 39. And the final question, number 40. As far as language is concerned, there is a difference between people's social and practical needs. So in this same paragraph, the final paragraph of the passage, we're looking at social and practical needs. There they are. But is there a difference? So the practical need will diminish, the social value will persist. Now, diminish means to get smaller and smaller. Persist means to stay the same. So that is a difference. So the answer to number 40 is yes. That does agree with the writer's view. One will go down, one will stay the same, so they are different. Right, if you have tried this at home, here are all of the answers, so you can check your answers now all together. Pause the video now if you have any marking to do. Then count up your score. Restart the video. Okay. So this gives you a rough idea of the number of correct answers that you need for the band scores. At this point, it is important to understand why you got any answers wrong. So you can watch those parts of the video again, double check why it's wrong. Make sure you're not making silly mistakes like writing true or false if it's yes or no. Not writing 2 words when it says 1 word only, that kind of thing. Just to mention, if you don't know the answer, don't leave it blank. Have a guess, especially if it's multiple choice or true, false, not given questions. Don't leave them blank. And if they are yes, no, not given, or true, false, not given, and you can't find the answer, go with not given, because there's a good chance that the answer is not there, and that's why you can't find it. Well, thanks for watching this video. I'd like to wish you good luck with your ongoing studies and your upcoming test if you've got one booked. Remember to subscribe to the channel. There will be more videos like this coming soon. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it and leave a comment down below. It's great for people to interact with the video. I will see you again another time on Traveller's Guide IELTS. Goodbye for now.